Gray Zone Warfare on Steam Deck. First of all, thanks to Madfinger Games for providing a code of the game. This is a tactical PvP and PvPvE shooter and an extraction shooter as well. Early access, unsupported, according to Valve, they don't give a reason why. And it's an Unreal Engine 5 game, so let's get into it right away and see how it goes. Alright, so we're in the main menu. This is Early Access Pre-Alpha 0.2.1.9483. So yeah, it's very early still. And in the options, first of all, there's no gamepad support, apparently. Maybe you can map the keys, but the Steam controller configurations all had keyboard and mouse mapped to the controller, which is not ideal. Maybe that's coming later. But this is a very hardcore, realistic shooter. I'm guessing it's meant for having lots of buttons on the keyboard. So going into graphics, we get the standard UE5 stuff. We get 800p, vertical FOV, which this should be like 85 to 90 degrees horizontal. When it comes to frame rate limit, you can go unlimited, and the quality preset was set to low. So the low quality is global illumination on low, textures on low, everything on the absolute lowest, including, yeah, even FSR. On this one, there is frame generation, which was enabled by default, but on its own, the game was with frame gen and performance FSR. Let's see if this is enough to actually play the game properly. But as of right now, yeah, FSR performance, which is 50% resolution, which equals 400p. Alright, we're now into the game. Again, FSR performance, so 50% resolution, where you'll see all the VRAM, all the RAM, the 16 GB of Steam Deck. We're clearly very heavily memory limited. I mean, only 16 gigs to share between the RAM and the GPU. And well, 50% resolution, lowest settings. I very briefly tried this on my PC that has a way faster GPU, an RTX 4070 Ti. And it was a fantastic looking game, almost photorealistic, I'd say. And well, as you can see on Steam Deck, we're barely hitting the 20 FPS mark. Let's see the map very quickly. I mean, the map is pretty huge. Not sure if you can notice, but if you zoom out, the map is gigantic. It's ridiculous. And on this new update, they got the night operations, but there's not even action going on at the moment, and we're below 20 FPS, maxed out CPU, maxed out GPU, and we're mostly, I'd say, memory limited. Again, you get 16 gigs, but shared between the system and the video memory. So we're limited by that and the CPU as well. So that in combination with the GPU not always hitting the maximum frequency of 1600 MHz, I'd say right now, at least at this point in early access, the game is not playable on Steam Deck. I mean, realistically, you wouldn't be playing a tactical game like this one on a controller. But I wanted to check it out because many of you guys asked me to see what's up with this one, because it's very demanding. Well, as you can see, now that more people are arriving, it's even worse with the chopper. But there it goes. In this mode, players cannot hurt each other, so let me see if I can find a daytime map and give it another shot. Alright, so I'm loading another server that is daytime because it has a day-night cycle, now with a new update. And now I should have players and AI running at the same time. As you can see, it's having a lot of trouble rendering. But there it goes, this is the same part of the map as before. As you can probably notice, if I look at the map is still huge. Yeah, it's ridiculously large map. But now, apart from having to render the game, we have players, AI, and well, all the shenanigans happening in the background. Despite being on the lowest settings, I think it looks okay. Believe it or not, all that is actual. An actual map is not a PNG image to make it look like it's a lot of foliage. It's actually being rendered, which I think is kind of crazy. And on my higher end PC, it looks fantastic. Again, as I said, almost photorealistic. But of course on Steam Deck with very little memory, we get very dodgy textures, to say the least. Well, when it comes to performance, as you can see, we're barely hitting the 20s when there's anything going on, especially in this map that now has, well, more players and more AI. You might be asking yourself, okay, what about frame gen? Well, I'm getting to that. We scroll all the way down. We're again on FSR performance. By itself, it enables frame generation by default, which I wouldn't recommend on any frame rate below 40 something FPS. Yeah, the latency is huge, but I kind of understand why they did it. Why they put that on Steam Deck by default. It looks way smoother in comparison than just playing it without frame gen. Although if you look at the frame time, you can notice that, well, it's very unstable, and that's because apart from that there's a lot of latency when I move the camera around. Apart from that, frame generation is not meant to be used at such a low frame rate. So I tried lowering the resolution even further and we still have that issue. Again, this is a super high-end game with great graphics and, well, I think it's very ambitious. But at the same time, there's no even controller support natively. It's not meant to be played with a controller. And on a portable machine such as the Steam Deck, I think the main limitation, at least the easiest way for me to notice, is that we're heavily memory limited. This game needs a lot more VRAM in my opinion. And since we only have 16 gigs to work with, at least when it comes to the entire unified memory, we're using 12.8 of those 16 and then 6.9 for the VRAM, which doesn't equate to 16 gigs. But that's because the Steam Deck is using ZRAM. So in memory constrained situations, now it's doing better since SteamOS 3.6. But obviously it's not enough for this game. Apart from being UE5, it's of a very large scope. And it's pretty early. I mean, it's the version 0.2.1. So this is just an early look. I want to also play it on PC on stream so we can see how it runs on higher end GPUs. And even the GTX 1650 just for the memes. But for the Steam Deck itself, without frame gen, you're going to get 20 FPS or less on the lowest settings at 50% resolution scale, which is as low as it likes to go. But it's already pretty blurry and again, completely, I would say, unsupported. The good news about this though, if you are on Linux, the game works. So they're not blocking Linux on Easy Anti-Cheat. So that's a great thing to see, at least for the beginning, for more people to be able to play the game. You can actually get it to run on Linux without any issues. I just used the Proton that was assigned by Steam. And I was on my way, joining servers and getting into the game. So yeah, I think right now it needs a lot of improvement when it comes to performance. I mean, even by playing on a PC, but it's very, very demanding. So I wouldn't say it's a Steam Deck compatible game, at least not right now. Maybe in the future, who knows? I'm not really holding my breath for that. But let me see if I can get this enemy. Do I have safety on? Yeah, the safety was on, I think. Oh, never mind, it wasn't loaded. So yeah, right now I wouldn't recommend it on Steam Deck. Maybe one day, but I'm not holding my breath. Oh well, it's a looter shooter. And again, it's super competitive. So you probably do not want... Yeah, you probably don't want to play this with a controller either, so yeah. It launches, it goes online, you can join servers, you can get close to 30 with frame gen, quote unquote, but it's very unstable. We're heavily CPU and memory limited. The GPU cannot be fully utilized because the CPU is using all the power that we have, basically, and telling the GPU, hey, we only have 15 watts, let me do the work. And the GPU is like, okay, I'll lower my frequency. So yeah, right now, just ignore it on Steam Deck. If you have a high-end computer, it might be worth checking out. I'm going to play more on my main PC to see those fancy graphics. So yep, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, playing with a lot of latency and frame gen on Steam Deck at basically 400p. I'll revisit this game once we get to the 1.0 version, so thank you for watching and I'll see ya next time. Bye guys.